A writer searches for inspiration in a foreign land, but instead discovers a loophole that allows him to act out his darkest fantasies without the consequences. This, however, turns his vacation into a nightmare that changes him forever. At a resort in Li Tolqa, the facility personnel, Ketch, welcomes the guests to Umbramak, a festival held in preparation for the upcoming rainy season, and anoints them with the Fetiega pigment, which symbolizes that they're all bound by friendship as the season ends. He then promotes the Eki mask, which looks like a deformed face. At their table, James expresses his discontent with the place, so Em reminds him that it was his idea to go here to get inspiration. She suggests a boating tour and dinner at a Chinese restaurant in the resort, but he refuses since he thinks that the resort's supposed town seems fake. Therefore, Em asks him if she can go alone, and the husband immediately agrees. Alone, James explores the resort and is shocked to see a man on a quad bike causing a commotion. A woman named Gabi explains that the man is a local threatening the tourists, wanting to hang their lifeless bodies at the airport to scare the others. James comments that it's extreme, so Gabi replies that the locals are melodramatic. Suddenly, she tells him she is a fan of his book, which piques James's attention since this rarely happens. She then introduces him to her husband, Alban, and invites the writer to join them for dinner. That evening, James and Em join the couple at the Chinese restaurant. Alban shares that he was an architect but now runs an architectural journal. On the other hand, Gabi is a commercial actress specializing in looking natural while failing at menial tasks to promote the featured product. To demonstrate her acting skills, Gabi pretends to struggle with cutting soft bread with a knife, which amuses James. Gabi then asks for James' next book, creating an awkward atmosphere. Em explains that her husband has stopped writing, but James clarifies that he's working on it, though he jokes that he might have no talent. He adds that he's at the resort to find inspiration, which he finds pathetic. Alban wonders about their finances, so Em chimes in that her husband married rich. This makes the conversation end with awkward laughter while Gabi stares at James. Afterward, they go clubbing, where Gabi and James join the dance floor while their spouses remain at the bar. The author watches his fan intently, allured by her beauty. The following day, the Fosters are about to meet the Bowers for their getaway outside the resort. However, Em is reluctant since they barely know the couple, and the resort warned them against leaving the facility due to the high crime rate. James argues that the Bowers are regular tourists in this country, so they would know which places are safe. Em jokes that her husband is only happy to find a fan, but James just encourages her to have fun. Soon, they meet the Bowers, who have borrowed a car from a worker named Mr. Thresh. They drive outside the resort and shortly arrive at a beach. As James and Gabi watch each other, Alban suddenly offers the writer some sausages. When James comments that he'd eaten too much, the man jokes about fattening him up since he's their final course. He then offers some to Gabi, but she just walks away. Alban then comments that both Gabi and James are disobedient, making him sarcastically ask why Em married him. The woman links this to her daddy issues, noting that her father, who runs a publishing house, is a monster and hates writers. As an act of rebellion, Em married the first broke writer she met. James just listens to his wife's comments quietly. Later, as he's taking a leak, Gabi silently approaches and touches James. After he's done, the woman leaves without saying anything. At night, Alban is too drunk to drive them back to the resort, so James takes the wheel. While driving, the headlights begin to flicker, so James tries fixing them. A local suddenly crosses the road, and the vehicle hits him. This wakes everyone, and they panic upon seeing the stranger's lifeless body. The Fosters want to inform the police, but Gabi sternly directs everyone to return to the resort. She declares that getting arrested in an uncivilized country is too dangerous. Out of fear, everyone heads back to the resort. The guards stop them by the gate, so the Bowers claim that they got lost and accidentally wandered outside the resort. After showing their key cards, the authorities let them in. The following day, James awakens to the police at their door, arresting him and his wife. When they arrive at the police station, they're placed in separate cells. Soon, James meets Detective Thresh, the nephew of the man they rented the car from. Given this, the detective asks him to keep his uncle's involvement a secret to keep him safe. After he agrees to comply, Detective Thresh spins a story that the Bowers stole his uncle's car and hit a farmer named Myron, who passed away. He adds that Em has confirmed this statement and that in Li Tolqa, the penalty for taking a life is to be eliminated by the victim's firstborn son to preserve the family's honor. James panics, so Thresh continues that the country also has a special prohibition exclusive for diplomats and wealthy tourists. This law allows them to pay a generous amount to create clones that will be executed in their place. The clone will inherit their memories and possess their guilt. James is confused, so the detective asks him if if he prefers to be executed instead. With no alternative, the writer signs the agreement. After withdrawing a massive amount of money, James is prepped for the process. Workers measure his body and place a mouthpiece to expose his dental structure. Then, he enters a room filled with red goo. Alone in the room, James becomes nervous as he hears whirring and thuds before more goo is spilled inside. Then, the electricity crackles, and lights of various colors fill the place. Soon, he hallucinates Gabi dancing seductively. James crouches as random images of Gabi, lasers, and the Eki mask flash before his eyes while his clone starts to take shape. Afterward, James wakes up with M by his side. Soon, they're escorted to the clone, and Detective Thresh notes that it was completed perfectly. M is horrified to see her husband's duplicate, while James becomes drawn to it. Thresh adds that the couple must watch the execution, which is non-negotiable. Suddenly, the clone wakes up, terrifying the Fosters, so the couple is escorted out of the room. Eventually, they watch with the victim's family as James' clone is tied to a pole. M holds James' arms in fright while her husband seems curious. Soon, Myron's son arrives with a knife, terrifying the clone. He begs for his life and yells for M to help him, further driving the woman in tears. The son then avenges his father, stabbing the clone repeatedly. After the deed, James gives an amused smile. Before the couple leaves, Detective Thresh later hands them the urn of the ashes of James' clone. Upon returning, M hurriedly packs to leave the country, but James claims he lost his passport. This makes M panic, but she still insists on leaving. After she calms down, James urges her to return to America without him. However, she reveals that she saw his reaction to the execution, which she finds disgusting. Dismissing this, James just tells her that he'll go to the front desk to ask if they can do something to help M. While in the lobby, James becomes distracted when he notices Gabi staring at him. After requesting to extend their stay at the front desk, he leaves, but Gabi follows him to apologize and invites him for a drink. She confesses that they were arrested before when the InfinityPool Alban was constructing in another resort collapsed, taking 2 lives. Her husband was held accountable, and that was when they found out about the cloning process. She understands that James craves something new, so he may find inspiration in what happened to him earlier. Then, Gabi invites him to their private social circle, which includes the Bowers, Charles, Jennifer, Dr. Bob, and Bex. Having learned that he's a writer, Jennifer probes more about James's book, but Bob asks her to give the man a break. Jennifer clarifies that she's just curious about their new zombie, assuring him that he shouldn't be afraid since they're all zombies. Alban reassures James that they're all brothers in this circle and briefs him about Li Tolqa's laws, especially regarding the lax discipline for people with money. Bob, who's writing a paper on the Li Tolqan tradition, wonders if James thinks he's the real one and not the clone. The doctor explains that it was his greatest concern after the cloning process since he never knew what happened when he was unconscious. Jennifer thinks it doesn't matter, and James comments that he can only hope to be the real one. The writer excuses himself for some alone time, but Gabi follows him. Seeing him distraught, she assures him that it's normal to feel like he's settling into a new skin after what he experienced. Then, she asks James to trust her tonight. Upon hearing a gunshot, they return to the gathering, where Charles invites James to play with them, casually putting his arm around his shoulder with a gun in hand. The group explains that their mission is to rob the owner of another resort of his medal awarded for promoting prosperity in the country. Gabi informs James that this is the man who blamed Alban for the accident years ago, so they want to respond to such an insult he inflicted on them. Charles then points his gun at James, threatening him if he doesn't join, so he agrees. Intoxicated, they break into the souvenir shop, laughing and rolling on the floor. They take an Eki mask for each of them, and Bex gives James one that she deems perfect for him. When they arrive at the mansion, they instruct James to sneak in first. The writer takes his time as he fails to open the door. Suddenly, a woman opens it, and James pounces on her. Then, his company, fueled with rage, charges and attacks the people, threatening them with guns and knives. They soon line up the owner, his partner, and a maid while James guards them. Gabi, who seeks revenge, persuades the writer to shoot them, handing him her gun. However, he lets go of the gun and steps back, disappointing the woman. Alban arrives and asks what they're doing, so Gabi sarcastically comments that James is playing chicken. Unbothered, her husband invites James to drink and smoke using the owner's supplies. Unbeknownst to them, a bodyguard is waiting for the right time before firing at them. Gabi angrily exchanges bullets with him, ending the lives of the women and the bodyguard. However, Alban is also shot in the leg, so they carry him to James' place, which is the nearest. M is shocked upon seeing the arrival of the masked strangers and a wounded Alban, but James demands her to calm down. The following day, the group is arrested, but they casually converse in the cell cell without any concern, even when Detective Thresh arrives. Due to their lack of remorse, the cops drag them out. Finally, they panic and remind the cops that they are willing to pay no matter the price. Still, the police line them up in the execution room. James tries to fight them off, but he's subdued, and all of them are executed. A roar of cheers echoes as Gabi's group watches their clone's demise. The following day, James returns home to see Em all packed up. She asks him to come with her, but he reminds her that he has no passport. Seeing that he has started to enjoy his cruel freedom, Em is distraught at what her husband has become. In retaliation, he tells her to return to her father, so Em silently leaves. Left alone, he places the urn of his latest clone's ashes beside the first one. That afternoon, the writer informs Gabi that Em left, which the woman declares as something for the best since they don't fit each other. She also tags Em as a type of woman who raises a man to be weak, which will take some time and blood to change. Then, she kisses James and brings him to a room to teach him how to use the Ekigate, a traditional Li Tolqa hallucinogen that is considered religious in the country. After taking the substance, the two become intimate, and soon, James explores this new world with the other members of their social circle. James settles fast into this law-breaking lifestyle. One day, Charles informs him that, according to his contact, it's Thresh who's stopping the writer from getting a new passport. Gabi urges him to show the detective who's dominant between them, and Bob informs him of Thresh's medical procedure scheduled for tonight. Because of this, they later abduct the officer and bring him to their hideout with a bag over his head. Under the influence of Ekigate, James harshly beats the detective while Gabi watches in satisfaction. Eventually, she removes the cloth, and James becomes stupefied to see that he was harming his clone. Panicked, he leaves the room. His companions mock him by serenading him, while Gabi knocks on the door to explain that they conspired with Detective Thresh to make the clone for their little joke. However, James doesn't take this supposed joke well, so he retrieves his passport that he hid under the sink. The next day, he rides a bus to flee from the country, but Gabi's group blocks them and shoots at the vehicle, threatening the other passengers to make James surrender. Frightened, he steps out of the bus while the group laughs. They return to the resort, with James walking the long road while Gabi drinks on the hood of the expensive car. She confesses that she never read his book, and they targeted James as their entertainment source. She blames him for falling into their trap and even getting himself arrested without their help. Gabi agitates the writer more by reading the bad reviews of his book, announcing how the people see James as someone who knows he lacks talent but covers it up by being pretentious. Suddenly, Gabi's wine bottle rolls off, and James uses this chance to attack her. However, the group restrains him easily while the woman laughs at his pathetic attempt. He runs to the woods, and Gabi shoots him in the leg. He resumes walking, determined to escape, and arrives near a farmhouse before collapsing. A local family takes care of James and brings him in. Soon, he awakens, only to see Myron's son, who smiles creepily at him before strangling him. As James struggles to free himself, the son's face warps into Em, who's laughing dementedly. Then, she rips James apart, awakening him from the nightmare. When he regains his strength, he exits the house, only to be greeted by Gabi's group. The woman instructs Jennifer to bring the dog, and James' leashed clone, who acts like a canine, reveals himself. They order James to end his clone's life as it's the only way to complete his evolution. James vehemently refuses and makes the dog fetch the knife they gave him. Instead, however, the clone attacks him, so he vents his anger and smashes its head. He cries like a baby, so Gabi cradles him and smears the clone's blood on her chest before nursing the weeping man. The following day, James calls Em to inform her that he's coming home as the resort is closing for the season. The resort's guests, including Gabi's group, ride the bus and casually talk about returning to their normal lives as if they're leaving a normal vacation. On the other hand, James sits at the back, watching them. When they arrive at the airport, the Bowers bid him goodbye, noting that they'll see him again next year. After they leave, the writer watches the other tourists waiting for their flights home, wondering what acts they were allowed to do during their stay in exchange for money. Hours later, James is left alone in the airport, unable to return home and act as if nothing happened. Instead, he returns to the resort, which has been abandoned due to the incoming monsoon. The broken man sits alone as the rain pours, hoping it can wash away the sins he enjoyed during a little freedom with no consequences.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.